right. How is everyone this afternoon? Feeling good? All right.
Awake after coffee.
I know. Excellent. Thank you very much, David. That was very kind of you. I'm Emily, and this is Casey.
How you doing, everybody? Hello to everybody here virtually. We appreciate your attendance and your participation, whether in person or from home.
Super excited to be here this afternoon, and we're going to talk a little bit about and take you on a journey from chaos to chorus. So it's fair to say that we have seen massive amounts of disruption over the last 2 years across almost every single sector of our business and in almost every element of our lives. I'm sure for many of you, like for me, going from having kids get up and go to school 5 days a week to everybody in the house all at once in whatever room or piece that they were in trying to get their work done while all of us were learning to live a new life was a huge adjustment. And it's fair to say that what we want to do this afternoon is share our little experience, or our big experience, whichever it was for you, on how great changes are really preceded by tremendous chaos. As The Economist said last year, we know from history that people tend to spend more, take more risks, and expect more after periods of massive disruption like we have just seen in the pandemic. How that offers the opportunity to create, to innovate, and to thrive is the subject of what we're going to talk about this afternoon with you. Worldwide, we saw people evolve their habits and their preferences in digital work, in digital life, and in digital learning. We knew the pandemic would disrupt business just as it did our personal lives. The truth is, to meet those changes, organizations had to make a decision, right? They had to make a choice. You either evolve or you become extinct. We, and not just Lenovo, but all of us are grappling with how to make those changes and how to adapt on the fly. This will resonate, the word pivot. It is the new lexicon. It is the new word that everybody knows, everybody uses at all different times of the day, no matter where you are or what you're doing. We all know what to pivot means. What became a great opportunity out of this incredible chaos was to better align marketing and sales in such a dynamic environment. And that has gone from being important to being an imperative. For global marketers, the risk of chaos truly increases exponentially. Lenovo's choice to transform, while in this global chaos, meant that we had to be really thoughtful about our approach. For us, it's about unity and not uniformity. As you can see, we are a global company and we operate in very local ways. We are united in our diversity. Our unique challenge was complexity, the requirement to respect and really cross-pollinate our views and values together without splintering our brand. Because only together could Lenovo, as a huge global organization, evolve with the times to provide smarter technology for all. And that is exactly what our brand stands for. We heard Bob this morning, right? Change can be scary. And equally, disruption and chaos at this kind of scale was completely unprecedented for all of us. I would also posit that change is inspiring. We also saw that this morning, right? To see people globally who choose to thrive in this new reality. What I like to believe is that it is choice and not chance that determines our destiny, as well as our opportunity. Go with me for a minute Think of your very favorite song. There's lots of music that was played on the breaks. Think about that song. The truth is, it started out as a series of chaotic and disorganized notes. At the end of the day, those notes became order, and they turned into a beautiful song or piece of music in a truly unique way. That journey of that happening in creating a beautiful melody is also the reward. The journey is the reward. So, in my mind, the opportunity here is for us to be able to innovate. Simon Sinek once said, "The ability to see order in chaos is called creativity." I think he's spot on. And what I would add to that is to create is always a choice that you can make. So a little bit about the journey. In the chaos, I decided to embrace 3 different things. First of all, I chose to step into a global C-suite role for the very first time in my career. Imagine, if you will, a pandemic, a brand new job, thousands of employees, and not a natural way, as I knew it, necessarily to connect. We were in a pandemic. We were locked down. That was the first choice. The second was to take the opportunity to redefine that specific role amidst the chaos. So reimagining, redefining, taking the steps to think about what my vision would be for this role and how to put that forth. Third, and probably most important, the choice to embrace the journey, to enjoy the ride, to embrace feeling uncomfortable, nervous, uncertain, not quite sure. And those were very deliberate choices that I made. Here is my take. And it's easy for me to say, and it's easy for you to say. It's not as easy to do, which is to be brave, to be courageous, to dig deep, to do what's right for you, for your team, and very importantly, for your brand. Lean into being uncomfortable. Ouch, right? Uncomfortable. You are learning, you're being pressured, you're learning new things, you're put in situations and you're not quite sure what the answer is. Embrace it, lean into it. There is a tremendous amount of growth that comes from that. Be open to being uncomfortable. The other truth is, every one of us has to determine our first choice. So on a journey like this, the one that I'm sharing with you, what is the first choice that you will make? What did I choose to do? I chose to listen first. So here's a little bit of advice. When you step into a new role, whatever that may be, I think it's incredibly important to think before you speak. And to do that, you have to listen before you think. I promise it's not a tongue twister. Here's a great example. When you go to see a doctor, you walk in, and the doctor does not say to you, "Here you go, there's your prescription, you're all better." What do? They listen, right? They're curious, they're asking questions, they may have a hunch, they may validate the hunch, but they're really tuned in to listening. And that's incredibly important when you're stepping into a brand new role. The other dimension of listening is making sure that you create an environment where people will talk to you and they will tell you what's happening inside the organization. So most of you probably have been in leadership organizations where there's a way to manage process through the green, the yellow, and the red. Just give me a show of hands. Have you been there? Scorecards? Yes, I see every hand in the room almost. Okay, so here's what happens in my experience. The green, tick the box, beautiful, well done. The yellow, maybe we should spend a little bit of time talking about that. The reality is people don't spend enough time on the red, and I talk about celebrating the red. Let's get the issues on the table. Let's talk about them as a team. How will we help each other to solve the problems that exist in the organization rather than that really uncomfortable, what was the issue? What did you do about it? What did you do about that? And what did you do about that? And why? And how? You're not going to get to a solution. Embrace the red and create that environment where people will actually tell you the truth about what they see in an organization. So I would share those two pieces of advice. And it's interesting because I think our instinct, anytime we're in a brand new job, is to act and to immediately add value and to immediately do all the things we think we should be doing. It's hard to restrain yourself and to really listen. Aha, what did I hear when I took the time to listen? I heard noise across a splintered marketing organization worldwide. Because each discipline, each department, and each agency has virtuosos. You have these incredible talents inside your organization, but they're all creating music in silos. And that matters, because guess what? Siloed music means cacophony. And that is not good for your audience, because that's what they hear. Your partners, your customers, your stakeholders. Within the chaos of noise, I actually saw the opportunity to transform that noise, if you will, into a symphony. However, we faced some serious barriers in that journey. As marketers, everyone in this room has or will be on that journey. And I'm going to ask you to just give me a raise of hands like you did just a minute ago. If this is a challenge that you have faced before, give me a show of hands. Number one, a siloed organizational structure. Yeah? Everybody. And for those of you online, you're just thinking through, was this an issue for me? Second of all, scattered knowledge and expertise. Yeah? Okay, maybe not quite as much, but still lots of you. Third, how about talent development and retention, especially during the Great Resignation, which I personally think as leaders gives us the best opportunity ever to drive the great retention. So talent, is that one that I see hands going up? Yeah, okay. All right, so those were some of the barriers that I believe that we faced stepping into this challenge. Now, in order to meet the challenges as a leader, you have to commit to making certain changes and certain choices. While I'm encouraging you to be brave and to lean into uncomfortable and to take your time and to listen, the truth is there's not that much time when you're in a brand new role and you're feeling the pressure to make a difference, to add value, and to contribute. The truth is leadership is all about codifying your choices into clarity, a lot like sheet music, taking those individual notes and turning them into something beautiful. So, where did we start? In order to address the silos, we made the choice to reorganize our teams. Now, anytime you say those words, there's a natural that you hear, right? Sort of, ooh, ooh. For us, it wasn't so much that as it was really the opportunity to facilitate unity in the organization. I really felt and read from what I had heard and from the synthesis of the conversations I had had that people were ready and they were welcoming the idea of moving out of their silos into a new organization, a bit of a new day and a new approach. That was step one. Step two, we made the choice to address the scattered knowledge and scattered expertise across marketing. And we did that by creating bespoke or custom centers of excellence to really centralize and codify two things: knowledge, so whether you're a discipline expert or a subject matter expert was one half of the equation, and the other was to facilitate continual learning In this incredibly dynamic landscape that all of us are in, things are not the same last week as they will be this week as they are next week. And that continual learning is very much the Lenovo way. And so I felt that this approach would work really well in the organization. And you can see that the Center of Excellence revolved around customer insights and analytics, our global media strategy, which for us is hybrid. We went through an entire end-to-end agency review and made the decision to have an agency coupled to a hybrid approach for the way that we buy and plan our media. A social media center of excellence, so that we could gather all of the learnings and come to market with one voice, and also all of the analytics that are coupled to that. And then customer references, as we tell those beautiful stories about our customers and put them at the center of our marketing. We also were able to organically develop new skills as an organization out of the centers of excellence that serve the entire company. Where do we go from here to address a number of the different elements around talent and retention? So we've chosen, as a company, 2 key partnerships for talent development and retention. We're working with the ANA, I'm delighted to say, to really design and implement a talent development curriculum. The first thing that we did was adopt the ANA competency framework, which in my own opinion is a best-in-class blueprint for top-notch modern marketing organizations. And then what we did was leverage the ANA capability diagnostics tool. It's a very fancy set of words for survey. And what we did was send that out to hundreds of marketers in our organization to help us to understand where were they feeling there were gaps, where were they feeling there were areas they wanted to learn more about. And we received probably one of the best response rates I've ever seen. Enormous amount of desire to learn and to advance the agenda for themselves and for the brand. And then what we did was we collaborated with the ANA and the Marketing and Training and Development Center to customize talent training solutions to address the gaps that we uncovered, and then all of the interests that people expressed that they had to be able to grow in their careers and to continually learn. So really top to bottom way of thinking about our talent and addressing our talent best in class. And last, but certainly not least, is our partnership with Casey and BriefLogic. We see a real opportunity to set a new bar in the industry in how we as marketers brief our agency partners, creative partners, media partners, brand partners, social partners. The focus for us is really on the quality of marketing input into all of our agency relationships. We think it's incredibly important to be able to step up and to give them very best-in-class inputs to the briefing process. And the results, the creative, and the return on the investment are tied to where all of the work starts, which is in that briefing process. We believe that there is no one better to talk to you about this who can help us to dramatically improve the quality of input to agencies than the company who created the category itself. So I'm going to turn it over to Casey, and I'm going to let him share his perspective with you on why I think this is not just a CMO level issue, but it's an industry level issue. Casey.
Thank you so much, Emily. Wasn't she awesome? Round of applause. She'll be here all week. So the reason this is an industry problem and not just like a box that you check, wrote a brief, sent it to the agency, it's an industry problem because it's been around for a very long time. We started BriefLogic in 2009, worked interestingly enough with the ANA for a number of years on the briefing curriculum for some of their training. The industry problem is that there's a giant disconnect between the input that goes to an agency and the outcomes that you expect from an agency. And in general, we lob briefs as marketers over the fence, then the agencies come back with work, and then the work starts to churn. In the end, you always have a brief, but a lot of the times you get there through rebrief and churn and creative churn. What you're missing then is the jump from your current ROI to, as Bob said this morning, and the ANA is focused on growth. This is a growth opportunity, and it's the largest and most easily addressable growth opportunity in the entire industry, in our humble opinion. And we've seen it, and we have the evidence to back it up, and there's a lot of interesting survey data too. A phenomenal study recently by an Australian group called Better Briefs, interestingly enough. They surveyed 1,700 marketers and agency executives, kind of half and half, 70 countries worldwide. And here's a phenomenal piece of data that they generated. They asked, and I'm hoping all of you will just ask yourselves, am I good at creating killer input for my agency to work from? I won't ask for a show of hands, but in general, marketers, 80% of them responded that they believe they're good at providing, in particular, their creative agencies with good briefs. Look at the data coming back from the agencies. Only 10% of creative agencies think their marketing input, the briefs that they receive from marketers, was high quality work that they could nail it from. The data on the other side of the chart, on this side, on the right side of the chart, is BriefLogic data on $7 billion worth of briefs. And it reveals the solution. Break your briefs up. If you want to drive higher ROI, if you want more growth in your career, for your company, focus on the components, roles and responsibilities, competitive analysis, insights, budgets, metrics. If you fix the components, garbage in, garbage out, quality in, quality out. There are 3 things that we can recommend once you've committed to becoming better at briefs, becoming a world-class organization or a world-class marketer. 3 things. 1, have a policy. We've hardly run into a company of the hundreds we've worked with that has a policy for briefing agencies. Does all work require a brief? What does? Do briefs for work over $5 million require, or work, does that require a brief? There are almost no policies. That's why it's an industry problem. Number 2, have one set of input quality standards. Literally, even if you write them yourself or you grab great briefs that your agency has said, wow, our client nailed this one, have those standards for yourself. If you want to nail it as an organization, create one set of standards that tells you when an individual marketer wrote a brief and nailed it. We score them on an academic scale when we do audits. Sometimes we do them quarterly or annually. And literally it's did they get an A? Have a rubric so you know what an A looks like. Lastly, have a process. Have a process. Some of us started our career back when there was a traffic sheet on the agency side. You got an assignment and it went through each department. It went through each supervisor. They checked off a box. This is a particular process that one of the clients we work with uses for any brief where there's more than $1 million worth of agency spend or media spend or project behind it. Have a process is all you need to start with, and then you can refine and make that process better. And it needs to scale. Some assignments require a short brief, some long. It's budget and complexity that drives the difference. The last thing I can leave you with before turning it over to Emily for closing remarks is, as a marketer, take pride in your work. You want great output. You want great outcomes from your agency. They depend on you to take pride in the quality of your input. Those 2 things are correlated. They always have been. You can take chaos and make symphony from it. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to the divine Ms. Emily Ketchen, and she'll close it out, and then we'll go to Q&A.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so this then leads us to where Lenovo will be helping our individual marketers and our agencies. And the desired outcome is that in place of that particular chaos that every team inherits at every single time is the Lenovo way. It will be our codified way of working through the briefing process, standardizing that, educating our teams, and taking a ton of pride in giving our agencies the very best input that we possibly can, which we believe firmly will help not only the input but the output process, and therefore in the longer run, the ROI, the loyalty, the customer satisfaction. I'd be delighted to come back and share with you all at some point how that worked out for us, because we're just embarking on the journey. And before we move to Q&A, I'd love to leave you with just a couple of points. First of all, gentle but not so gentle reminder, don't let chance alone determine your destiny. Make sure that each of you makes choices that are right for you, right for your teams, right for your brands. Chaos and chorus are both different kinds of noise, right? Make better music by learning how and perfecting the art of listening. Every one of us has a journey. Huge pleasure to share both mine and Casey's with you this afternoon. And we're going to move to Q&A. Thank you for being a great audience. And thank you to everyone online.
Thank you very much, Emily and Casey.
Just in case there's questions, okay.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing personal stories, professional stories, tying it together. It's been quite a couple of years. And,
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's go to Q&A from the audience. And we should have said this before, but we do have mics in the room if anyone wants to get up and ask. We haven't been getting a lot of that, but we've gotten some good ones through the system. So let's go into that. So how do you get customers to tell their stories for your marketing purposes? We can never get through the customer side legal barriers.
I'm happy to take that one. In my experience, this is really founded in an entire group of team members and dependencies that all come together with the goal of really talking about your customer success stories. And it's the reason that we put together a center of excellence to address this very point, which is making sure the sales organization is working with customers, maybe starting with a light nomination that says, will you be a part of a customer story for us? And then pushing that further down the lane. I know there are always a ton of issues with legal, and that can be a barrier, but I think we have found the right mix of the benefit for the client and the benefit for the brand to be able to tell those stories in meaningful ways that both sides of the equation can learn from. And so it's actually the reason that we put together a center of excellence, is to perfect and scale that process. I also will acknowledge it's different in different geos, depending on the legalities of it. But I think if you go into a relationship with a customer with a level of openness and wanting to learn and having that learning agenda, I've seen that be very successful before. So yeah, thank you for the question.
Great. I might ask this question of Emily and Casey, right? Depending on, you're on different sides of that disconnected bar chart. Why do you think most briefs stink?
Do you want to go first?
I'll take that one.
Yeah.
It's really simple. Most briefs suck because most client organizations don't care about them. There is not a requirement. The only company that we've worked with prior to Lenovo that had a standard, that implemented a standard, was John Harabin, he was the CMO at Verizon. And he put quality input into everybody's performance review, including his own. That changed Verizon quality of briefing very fast. So the simple answer is companies have no policy. They don't incentivize great brief writers. Without that, it's just too easy to throw anything over the fence and then ask the agency to come back with whatever. And then they'll give them feedback on the work instead of being tight on the brief.
And I'm going to skip down a couple now, despite the voting, but follow up on that. You all have had that tough conversation, that there's the disconnect in the briefs. So the question is, why don't agencies tell clients that the briefs aren't good? Speaking about other companies and other agencies, because you guys clearly have figured that one out.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I have spent time in my career on both sides of the equation. So I spent decades in an agency and decades in the client role and some time in the publishing world. And I think part of it is really difficult if you're providing a service to tell your client that their baby is ugly, right? And that their inputs are not really great. It's just a very fundamental human truth. There's not a lot of mystery to that. I think it's because they run the risk of alienating their clients, or they run the risk of making clients feel like they don't really know what goes into a great brief. And the best relationships between agencies and clients are the honest ones, where you can be transparent and you can say, I want you to tell me if we're not giving you what you need. We're all here to advance the agenda for, in my case, Lenovo. The rest of it is really ancillary, right? We're here to do the right work for our customers and our clients and our partners and our employees. And so I want to know from an agency if the brief isn't up to par. The other thing I think is that oftentimes agencies want to have purview over the mining of that insight. I remember being in agencies, and that's a real point of pride for the planning department, right? Conducting the research, the qual that teases out the quant that leads to the insight that gets mined for these beautiful stories that get told. And so maybe that's also part of it. I would really encourage breaking down those walls, being much more modern, much more transparent, much more open, and saying to your agency partners, you are the experts, help us. And then I think it's incumbent on clients to take the opportunity to do a better job of brief writing. It's not like it's, a bad thing. It's great. And maybe if you're not a writer, you think, oh, I can't write a brief. Baloney. You can get all the insights. You can be the steward. You can be the one who curates that process of getting the very best inputs possible. But you have to provide your teams with the tools. And that's my real interest, is in adding to our marketers' strengths. Do you not want to learn more about brief writing? I do. I'll be writing along the whole way, because that's also changed. Yep. So I think those are some elements that are germane to what is a pretty complex process.
Absolutely.
That we want to simplify and codify.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to add to that from the agency side?
The other, and I'm not an agency, although having run agencies and worked on the client side as well. The other thing is, even if you ask your agency what's wrong with the brief, even if you survey your agency, a lot of times if that input is not anonymized, then you can't get an absolutely precise answer. When we reach out to agency principals and we interview them as part of our process, as we will with Emily's agencies, we ask them questions, but Emily will have already sent out an email to all of them saying, tell the truth, no names will be associated with comments. That frees the agencies up to be able to say exactly what's going wrong, what's going right, and that find a way, whether it's our way, Emily's way, your way, find a way to overcome that natural resistance to telling your customer, the marketer, that they need to do a better job on the input side of this equation.
Great. Yep, thanks. Real quickly, if we could, the last one, you talked about the importance of active listening, not falling into the trap of jumping to quick fixes. What other key qualities do you see for a modern CMO?
It's a great question. The key qualities of today's modern CMO, the list is enormous. What I think is most interesting about this is that CMOs today have to be equally fluent in technology, in the MarTech, AdTech, and sales tech stacks, in creativity, and in understanding what motivates and drives your customers. So the job of a CMO has become exponentially much, much larger, and it's much more technical than it ever was before. You've got to be able to sit down and talk about finance. You've got to be able to sit down and talk about technology, the death of the third-party cookie, deprecation of data, how you will do research. So I think those are the qualities of a modern CMO. I also think from a personal journey perspective, and I'm happy to share this, being vulnerable and being open is really, really important. I learn a ton from mentoring not because I'm mentoring, it's because of the reverse mentorship. It's because of what I learn from people that I spend time with who have a different take on things. And I would say that's really important as a CMO, is to stay wildly connected to your teams, to be generous of your time. And I think those are the elements of being modern and not hierarchical and sort of moving forward in that vein, but really being inclusive towards your teams and hearing their perspectives. That was a lot.
It was awesome.
Such valuable counsel. Thank you very much, both
Thank
of you.
you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.